Call the October 15th meeting of the Burleigh County Planning Commission to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is consideration. There are no items for consideration. We have no items for a public hearing. And other business, Steve
Becker.
Becker, Executive Director of Professional Insurance Agents of North Dakota. Please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Commissioner Bittner, fellow commissioners, at our September meeting, I had asked Chairman Andal if he would like me to schedule additional experts for a question that's been concerning us regarding insurance rates. And we canceled that meeting, so Mr. Becker has made himself available for this meeting. And that's why I invited him at the request of Chairman Andal.
Perfect. Thanks for doing that.
Okay, what I was asked to bring to you is some information on why developments out in the country or out in the county are more expensive than some of the housing insurance rates in town. And I thought I'd just give a little overview. Most insurance companies subscribe to the Insurance Services Office, or ISO. ISO is a data gathering organization that gathers data for the insurance department, and they come up with protection classes for different areas. And I got some information from ISO that might help. In order to even be rated by ISO, they have to have certain criteria. First criteria is they have to have defined boundaries for the fire protection. So there has to be a district with defined boundaries. They have to have a chief. They have to have at least 4 firefighters that can respond to a fire. And then they have to have training every 3 hours of training every 3 months for firefighters. And then they have to have at least one piece of apparatus, and that apparatus has to be housed inside to keep it out of the weather. If they don't have any of that, they are considered Protection Class 10, which is considered unprotected. Those rates are the highest. In order to get from a Protection Class 10 to a Protection Class 9, which is a little bit cheaper, they have to have all of those things, plus they have to have at least one piece of equipment with a permanently mounted pump that has a rated capacity of 250 gallons per minute and 150 pounds per square inch, and a 200-gallon water tank, and it must deliver a minimum of 500 gallons of water to all reported structures. If it has those and other types of equipment, then it becomes a Protection Class 9. Protection Class 9 is a little bit cheaper than 10, but it's more expensive than in town. Anything under a 9 would be an 8 or less, and Bismarck, I believe, is a 3 or 4. Almost all of the towns in North Dakota would be 1 through 8, and the insurance companies look at 1 through 8 as basically the same rates. So if you're a Protection Class 3 or Protection Class 5 or Protection Class 8, in most cases the rating structure will be the same from the insurance company. And to be an 8, you have to have all of those things that we just talked about, plus you have to have a minimum water supply of 250 gallons per minute for at least 2 hours in duration. You have to have a tanker shuttle or alternative water supply that is available within 5 minutes of the arrival of the units, and maintain that supply for 2 hours. And then they have to have pump capacity at least 750 gallons per minute at 150. So they have to have more gallons of water. So what the insurance company does is it takes this information from ISO and it builds the rates based on whether it's a Protection Class 1 through 8, Protection Class 9, or Protection Class 10, which is unprotected. Most carriers look at anything within 5 miles of the responding fire department that's a 1 through 8. They will usually give them either the responding fire department of 1 through 8, or they will give them a 9. Anytime you're outside of that 5 miles, now most carriers look at that as unprotected because it takes too long for the fire department to get there, and by the time it gets there, there's so much damage that they consider that unprotected. As far as rates go, just kind of give you an idea, Protection Class 9 is probably about 10% higher than in town. Protection Class 10 is anywhere between 30 to 40% higher than in town. But the carriers will take that ISO information and then they take their own, what they've had for claims history, and determine what rates they need to charge based on what their own claims history is as well. So that's just kind of an overview of how the insurance companies come up with the rates, but it's all based on responding fire department and how much water is available and how long it takes them to get there. So I hope that's what you were looking for. If you have questions, I can sure try to help you out.
Gentlemen, any questions?
Commissioner Bittner and other chair people. The only question I guess I had was, has anybody shared this information with our rural fire chief?
They should know that. I mean, they have most likely been rated by ISO. ISO actually sends forms out to the rural fire department. They get all the information. And then I know like for the city ones for sure, ISO actually sends people out and they go through the fire department and everything with them on what it takes to be the higher rated or the lower rated. So they should have that information, yes.
Okay. Do you think you could leave some of that paperwork here?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Anybody else? No other questions?
That's what you're
Thanks. I
looking for?
really- Yes, appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Inspector.
Okay, next item on the agenda. I think, Ray, you'll probably have to lead this off. Country Ridge 1 and 2, discussion on subdivisions.
Chairman, Commissioners, after visiting with our normal chairman and all about where to put this on the agenda and what to do with it, the change came about from a strip of land on the north side of Country Ridge First. There were 3 little lots that were dedicated up there, and the change came about to dedicate that to the access off that section line rather than make them private little lots. So the question came up about, does this really need to go through a whole preliminary and final approach again, run it through the Planning Commission? And that's why Chairman Andal thought we should put it on as a item for discussion. Now, normally we have minor changes. We don't do that. It could be, and it happens all the time. It could be maybe the wrong person in the wrong spot on the Mylar for signage, or a little bit of a legal description that needs to be cleaned up. These little minor changes happen all the time. So the question was, is this minor, or is this change minor enough to continue it on, or should we run it through the whole process again, which would mean get it on the consent agenda and then run it through a public hearing, send out notices. So there's expense involved in it too, and who would pay for that? So there's some questions there that probably need to be answered. We did get an opinion from Richard Rhea, and he felt that this probably isn't a, well, let me look at his words here. The removal of the lots and giving the land to the county for right-of-way diminishes the need for the Planning Commission to revisit this. However, since it could impact the edge of the plat, and perhaps it would be better to run it through and err on the side of caution. So, if there's any other questions at this time, or otherwise I'll turn it over for discussion, and there may be some input from others too.
Okay, Commissioner Small.
Yeah, Ray, do you have any idea how much land this is, square footage or acres or?
It's probably written on, Dave, you know right offhand?
Pretty
I
small
think-
though, probably less than an
Seems-
acre and a half or something,
Oh,
or?
I think it was around 20,000 square feet when I added it up that time. Which would be
Commissioner
roughly a half acre.
Commissioner Bittner, Ray, so the first one that has the 3 lots is already gone. Where is that in the process? Help me understand.
That is, Chairman and Commissioners, That has gone through the county commission, or not gone through it, but it was tabled at the May 19th meeting. And the reason it was tabled was to get other areas cleaned up, some stormwater issues, the roads weren't done, things like that. So it did reach the county commission level.
So if I may follow up, then does the change in terms of the 3 lots to the 1 lot to the county impact the stormwater management plan?
That comment has been made, Chairman Agsvig, that it could have an impact, and that's being looked at too. The comment came from the Burleigh County Water Resource Board, that they would like to see it addressed anyway.
Thank you.
Commissioner Small?
You kind of lost me there, Ray. Why would that change the stormwater? I mean, it's not being developed at all at this point.
Kerry Beckstrand is here from the Water Resource Board, and he could probably answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Kerry Backstein on the Burleigh County Water Resource Districts, and we did send in a letter from our chairman. Did everyone get a copy of that, or? Oh, okay. I just assumed that you probably had a copy of the letter. I'm not familiar with the procedures you use in approving or denying or going ahead with these plats. And we don't really, the Water Board, we have no concern with the plats or the water management plan as long as they're completed. And the letter, I'll just paraphrase a little bit for you. The letter that we sent in indicated that we have an agreement with the developer to do some things out there on the water management plan. There was a drain ditch out there in one of the other subdivision. What subdivision was that? Is that? Anyway, downstream from the two that you're looking at. And the drainage from these two subdivisions, the new ones, have to go through that area. And that ditch was already having some problems, and some of the landowners were not, it wasn't working as it should. So we ended up working with the landowners and also the developer, and we have a developer's agreement to go ahead and reconstruct that ditch so that it could handle the water from the two upper subdivisions that he's looking at doing. And it also included, there's a detention area just a little ways, I guess to the east of that ditch, just upstream of that drain ditch. And that too is supposed to be cleaned out and deepened as part of the water management plan. And that is part of the approved plan, and we have no problem with that. I think what's coming up is that on the north side there was a roadway that was built, and it was, my understanding, it was built, was it platted wrong? I'm in a lurch here, Dave. Anyway, there's a road or something that was built, and so they had to readjust it. Had nothing to do with our water management plan, other than the fact that the lots would be a little bit different size. We might have a little bit of extra, additional or less drainage coming off of those lots after the development is done. But that's not our concern. Our real big concern was the fact that the ditch has been completed by the contractor. There was some damages out there. We're in the process of seeing if those damages are being taken care of. I think one of them was a storm sewer or sanitary sewer system that was damaged. I think that has already been addressed and taken care of. If not, it's in the process. And then there was some other damages with some trees. We're trying to get the contractor and the landowner to get those done. And then there was also damage within, they found a big rock in there, and they had to move that rock out, and that caused some problems and caused some of the damages. It also caused some damage in the ditch itself, which has to be repaired before we'll accept it. We did, by the way, develop an assessment district, and it went to a vote of the people out there, and it's been passed. We have assessment district, and it's been given to the auditor for for the assessments in those districts. So everything's coming along, I think, real well. And we have no problem with the plat the way it is or the water management plan, other than the fact that we don't think that they should be approved until the water management plan has been completed any damages that has been caused out there, that all those things are done and completed prior to final approval of those plats. I'll try to answer any questions if I can.
Gentlemen? Okay, Commissioner Aspic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Is there I do have one question,
Okay.
Mr. Is there an expected completion date on those items that you'd mentioned that you want completed before a final approval of the plan?
I don't know if we have an approval date. Basically, most of it's already done. It's just that it needs to be completely finished up. The repairs and the damages have to be done. Then we'll send our engineer out to take a look at it, make an inspection, and then we'll either accept it at that time or not. And it's almost to that point. But we would like that. And what's not going to happen is that the topsoil won't be put on, I assume, until next spring. And we have no problem with that. We can go ahead and approve it with the idea that the topsoil will be spread and seeded in the spring. But the repairs and the damages, we need that done, in our view, and also that detention area completed before we think that the final plat should be approved.
So do you have, if I may follow up, then do you have any concern with the switch from the 3 lots to the new dedication to the county? Given, assuming your other
What I know
other
of it,
questions are.
we have no concerns on that. The only, let's see, I think we did say, I'll just read from the letter. It says, additionally, though not directly related to the construction project, the Burleigh County Water Resource District is concerned about changes in the County Ridge 1 plat along 87th Avenue, and that's, I believe, what you're talking about. These revisions need to be elevated and incorporated into the stormwater management plan to address the changes in the projected flows, as well as to assure that the approval is based upon a final plat that shows these changes in there. So we don't think there's any issues there that we're overly concerned about. It'll change the size of the plat. It'll probably make some of these lots a little smaller than what they were originally, which common sense should be less runoff from them. So I don't think we have any problem there, but the water management plan, the plat is included in the stormwater management plan. So we want to make sure that whatever that final plat is, with these corrections that, or changes, that they're all incorporated so that it's part of the water management plan. I'm not sure I answered your question very well, but.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay, I think
Thank you.
thanks, Carrie. County Engineer Marcus Hall, please.
Commissioners, I'll go back in the history of this a little bit. In that April or May timeframe when the plat that was approved, at that time I believe, we were looking at a straight road along that north edge, along the section line, okay? That was the plat that was tabled because of issues with water and stormwater and things like that. Since that time, the developer had some concerns and some problems with the property owners to the north of this particular plat. And one of them had to do with the regional water district and some of their piping and their water. They have a tower there at that location. And the cheaper solution than to keep on the section line was to move that road, do that swing in the road. So originally they came back with the swing in the road with those 3 lots, I think it was 3 lots along there, along that north edge, okay? At that point we said that was some disconcerting for us from the staff's point of view, because who owns those lots, who controls that, there's access issues, and there's also a section line there, and we can't just give that up through the platting process. That would take another process to give that up. So at that point, they came back and said, okay, let's just make it 1 lot and make it as part of right-of-way to the county, which is an acceptable thing and is reasonable and is a decent thing as far as I'm concerned. The whole concern I have, though, is the process and how we do minor changes. Ray is correct. Historically, when there's been a change, some type of change, when it's been relatively minor, incorrect spelling on something or something that jumps out, we've said, let's do it in-house, we take care of it, and we go ahead and move the thing forward. However, when do we cross the line between it's a minor change and something major change? Because even with the minor change, if I'm correct, our ordinance doesn't say that staff can make minor changes, okay? Theoretically, one could sue us and say, no, that has to go through the planning commission again. I don't think that's a reasonable, I don't think it's North Dakota sense kind of thing. You know, if it's a small minor change, I think staff should be allowed to make some of those. This is borderline more than that, especially if it was internal in the plat, I would be more comfortable with it. But since it's right on the outside edge of the plat, that concerns me a lot more. And I think that's part of the reason the state's attorney had said what he said is we'd better, it's possibly to be safer to go ahead and call for a public hearing and go through the process. I know there's right-of-way issues on the north side. I know they've got attorneys involved in this particular thing. I don't want us to get caught up in that by not following a process that we've prescribed for ourselves. And so my recommendation is that we call for a public hearing at the next meeting in November, go through the public hearing process as if it was basically reviewing the plat again. I know there's costs associated with that, and there's energy and effort that has to be expended. But in the long run, I think it might be the safer and the quickest way, because if we get sued in this process for doing something that we weren't allowed to do as part of our ordinance, that process could take much longer. So I think it's a quicker way to go about it by just calling for a public hearing and moving forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for the engineer? Okay, well, gentlemen, I can tell you that I've gotten a number of phone calls from residents in that area. And we've also had contacts from the attorney for the landowner, the adjoining landowner. So my recommendation would be to follow the advice of the staff, and I would entertain a motion. Auditor Glott, did you want to?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I concur with Marcus. I think I was probably the first one to say, hold on here, I think this needs, is it a minor change? What's minor, what isn't? So I would concur with the engineer and start the process over. Thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Seminary made that motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Second, any further discussion?
I just have one clarifying question.
Commissioner
So
Heskey.
would this be, because traditionally you have the preliminary hearing and then you have the public hearing, so would we consider this that preliminary hearing then and then the public hearing next meeting, or are we going to have to push it out I'm just trying to get a sense of where we're at on that.
Rick?
Chairman, Commissioner Agsvig, I think this could be considered as part of the consent agenda. Public hearing has been in motion and called for the next meeting.
Okay, any other questions, any other discussion on that? Okay,
What about time? Is it 30 days or 2 weeks for notification of public hearing?
Chairman, Commissioners, it's 2 weeks prior to the next meeting to send out notices, and then we will send out notices to the landowners surrounding it. I do have a question on who's going to pay for that, if we should pick up the price of that, or what's your thoughts on that? And I also would like to say, too, I mean, the question has come up in the past, too, on minor and major changes, and I think this really helps to clarify when do we send it back for a full round again, and when isn't it necessary, so.
okay, well, I think we're going to have to look into what sort of changes might be necessary within the ordinance to deal with the minor changes. Commissioner Small?
Chairman and Commissioners, and Ray, I guess, how much is this going to hold up this plat? How long? So do we got to go through the public, just say we do the public hearing next month, and then it gets kicked up to the county commission the following month?
Correct.
So it's basically going to be 6 weeks minimum.
Six to 8
Well,
weeks, I would say.
you know, in the past, we have held special planning commission meetings in order to not be part of that delay. You know, we recognize that it's important to have these things moving forward, so I think that would be a possibility. As long as it meets the public notice requirements, we could ask staff to look into that and schedule a special meeting for the public hearing.
Well, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but I don't see that this little change is gonna change a thing, but, you know. To me, it doesn't change anything, but like I said, I'm not a lawyer.
Okay. Ray, do you think that if we had the 2 weeks or you think that would work to have a public hearing, a special meeting for the public hearing for that?
You know, let me run it through the calendar because we also have to meet it in time to get it on the commission following after that. So let me try to coordinate that with all the dates and see what I can do.
Okay.
And we can notify you by email on what dates might work.
Right, well, we can discuss that a little bit. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion to schedule a public hearing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Now, for the public hearing for that, I think we could probably just by consensus agree that staff is going to look at the schedule, and we're going to try to schedule something as soon as possible if it, and we'll look to see if that'll include a special meeting. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Any other business for the Planning Commission? Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for November 12th, 2014, unless we call a special meeting for Country Ridge public hearing. Anything else, gentlemen? We are adjourned. Thank you.